My name's Andrew Jacobs. I'm the founder of an organisation called Llarn Learning. That's Llarn. It's a Welsh word that means clean. And the reason is because I'm trying to create a clean break around how learning and development is currently done. Prior to working as a consultant, I've worked in a range of industries across the UK, in government, both central and local, in retail, the fire service, retail banking, all in learning and development related activity.
Thanks. Andrew, this is really around sort of diversity in tech. Why do you think there's allegedly more men than women in the tech sector?
I think that what I find interesting is, like I said, I'm coming from a learning and development side, and women are significantly underrepresented in senior roles in learning and development. But they tend to do more of the routine operational activity. I think in tech, there's a very slight switch the other way around, where I think there tends to be more men working in the operational activity, but I do seem to see more women in senior roles. I'm thinking of people who work in Microsoft, for example, and a senior leader in IT and digital who worked in a government department that I work with. So I think that the way that women are presented or expected to be within certain roles within technology, I think there's a different expectation.
And what do you think that expectation is? Could you explain that a bit further?
So I think the pathway into technology is different. So the pathway into learning and development tends to be fairly straightforward. Somebody likes doing the job of standing up and telling people how to do a job, and so they end up getting the job in terms of training. To actually get into the pathway or the route to be involved in technology, you have to have a focus and technical skill and technical ability to be able to do things in an operational perspective. Whereas at a more senior level, it's more about the management skills that are required.
Okay. What do you think that men can do to make women more interested in tech, or generally what can happen to support more women get into tech, I suppose?
That's a really good question. Because I'm not necessarily directly in tech, I tend to look at it from a wider than just a technology perspective. What I find interesting is the constant focus on STEM, the constant focus on learning how to do the technical skills, which I think is quite interesting. I think from a male perspective, I think there's a whole piece around allyship and advocacy. This is something that I'm particularly aware of. So you and we had a conversation, Dimple, and I told you that I wouldn't speak on this podcast unless you had at least an equal split of male and women speakers. And that's the kind of thing that men need to do. So where they see an opportunity, they shouldn't immediately think, who's the man that I need to fill this space? What they should be doing is saying, how do I promote or provide an opportunity for a woman to support this space? And that could be in terms of a project, it could be in terms of responsibility, it could be in terms of some task. It hasn't got to be an enormous speaking thing. It could be much more simple than that, but actually taking a view and going, well, who'd be the best woman for this job would be useful.
Okay. Thank you for that, Andrew. Andrew, and sort of what are your sort of thoughts on the women in tech initiatives? Do you know of any? Are you, obviously earlier you said you're involved in sort of making sure that you speak at podcasts where there's an equal split, but are you involved more directly in any other initiatives where encourage women to tech? Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's from a learning perspective, there's a Women in Learning group, and they're doing some fabulous activity at the moment to try and bring women further into learning and development. I also have a podcast, which is Women Talking About Learning podcast, and the format's very simple. I do an intro and I do an outro, but effectively the space that's in the middle, some 30, 40 minutes, however long it is a space for women to talk about learning. And that can be technology, that can be any range of activity.
Andrew, again, this is coming sort of to kind of the last few questions. Do you think, in your view, that programs that are specifically designed just for women are discriminatory anyway, so against men? Because instead of celebrating what's common, are we kind of creating more of a problem where we're creating more of a barrier, really, by creating siloed programs for women or men? What's your thought on that?
Where women are underrepresented, it's entirely appropriate that there should be targeted activity for that. It's exactly the same as we should be targeting activity to support people from different minority ethnic groups and people with disabilities. The difficulty comes, though, where the program exists in isolation. There's no point doing a program and developing a program if there's no then obvious route forward. And that's part of the problem with many development activities. What they are is they're designed to fix an issue, but what they don't do is to future fix what else might happen. So, for example, if you want to recruit more women into technology, it's not as simple as saying, well, we will just offer these opportunities and give people some targeted support. What you have to do is to look at the structure and the relationships that you have within technology and say, well, are we creating spaces where it's appropriate and suitable for women to work? We had a similar thing when I worked in the fire service, where there was a change made to the technology on the appliances. Previously, people who were shorter than 5'3" weren't able to join the fire service. And what that did is indirectly discriminated against women. By changing the technology on the appliance and actually making it so that anybody under a certain height will be able to use the technology, actually opened it up for more people. And we need to do similar when we're looking at focusing programs for people, which is don't just do the program. Look at the other things that need to happen around it. Are our systems and processes built in such a way to be able to support it?
Thank you. Andrew, would there be sort of any kind of tips you could give to, those who design learning and development programs sort of in tech, to make it sort of more open and, kind of simple rather?
I think is start with the end in mind. Obviously, that's the important thing, and don't worry about the evaluation metrics. So we tend to focus on the input and output data. We had 18 people on a program and 16 of them said that it was really useful. What you should be looking for is what is the outcome data and what's the impact data. So in terms of designing a program, what's the outcome that you want? And the outcome isn't that you want a program to develop women. The outcome that you want is that 80% of women apply for a further, more senior role within 12 months, for example. That's an outcome. And you want to be looking at the impact and say, okay, so as a result of this program, we've increased the number of women in senior roles by X%, or we've increased the number of women engineers by X%.
Thank you so much. And that sort of brings us to a close. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish?
No. Thank you, Dimple. Just to say thank you for inviting me on. That's all.
Thank you.